Welcome, everyone. This is People to Know, insider interviews with the most famous and interesting people in the wine business. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Cynthia Lohr. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Cynthia is the co-owner and chief brand officer for J.Lohr Winery, founded in the 1970s in California's Central Coast. She graduated with a BA from UC Davis and went on to work in communications and marketing for 10 years, especially marketing initiatives for several high-profile Silicon Valley clients. She returned to the family winery in 2002 as the director of communications, and in 2021, she was named a Woman of Influence by Silicon Valley Business Journal. In 2019, she was nominated by Wine Enthusiast for Wine Executive of the Year. Cynthia also has her master's in public administration, which she got in 2023. So as we can see, you have just been sitting around eating chocolates here, right?
And drinking wine.
And drinking wine, of course. But to be serious for a second here, Cynthia, you know, when I think of J.Lohr, I think to myself, wow, for almost my whole time in my whole professional time in the wine business, I've known about J.Lohr because you're 50 years old, the family winery is. What do you attribute the family's success to?
Oh, such a great question, and thank you again, Karen, for having me. It's such a pleasure to sit here and chat with you. I truly attribute our family's success to my father's original vision, which was growing up on a family farm in South Dakota. He fell in love with the soil, the conditions that brought about, healthy wheat, rye, barley, triticale, which is a soil amendment. It was really all about harnessing the elements and creating good from it. So when he came out to California to get his almost a PhD in civil engineering at Stanford, where he met my mom. He created his first business was a building and development business. He and his business partner found they had this mutual love of wine, so they started traveling to California's Central Coast in the late 60s, and it led us to our 50-plus-year-old business. But it was that vision to craft the best Chardonnay and the best Cabernet growing in California at the time, which landed him originally in Arroyo Seco in Monterey County, and then later in Paso Robles for our Cabernet and Bordeaux varieties.
Yeah, and certainly I can just imagine in the late 60s what the Central Coast and right near Monterey was like. It must have been just so pristine and beautiful and cool and great for Chardonnay.
Yeah, very, very unspoiled, certainly. And we used to travel down there over the weekends. My father's very favorite photo is one of us in what we called the Shade House. It was like a greenhouse right there in Arroyo Seco with my mom holding my little brother Lawrence's hand and me standing next to my older brother, the stair steps, because we were 3, 7, and 10, and my father took the photo. But that's where family, place, and craft truly began, because my father saw that nurturing the vines in this beautiful, pristine, yet fully untapped appellation for our white wines. Now, granted, we did plant 9 different varieties in the early days, and through trial and error determined that it was really Chardonnay that was going to, and other Burgundian varieties that were going to flourish in that area.
Yeah. You know, the 70s seems both like yesterday, but also very far away. But when I think of the 1970s, I think of it as kind of the second golden age of California wine. It's when so many people like your father, people who were back to the land, somewhat, they were very savvy business-wise, but they were also very ideologically attracted to California, to the West, to these beautiful areas that were not yet wine lands, or they hadn't been since Prohibition.
Yes.
So it's just a fabulous time that period in the early 70s.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, my father and my older brother are both Stanford-educated civil engineers. So it's that empirical mindset that is always looking to use science to validate choices, which I think really is a very strong component of our success. But absolutely that ideology and that trial of the different places to grow grapes. Now it's interesting because we are Central Coast wine grape growers, but as I shared with you earlier, we have a small plot named after my mother, Carol, here in St. Helena. So we were trialing all different places to find where the best showcasing of true varietal character for J.Lohr would show.
Yeah. What do you think has kept J.Lohr wines relevant? I mean, it's really a very well-established brand, and it's hard to be relevant over the course of 5 decades.
Absolutely. Such a great question. I think America and certainly international has come to know us through our consistency, our flavors, our over-delivering in the bottle, that value equation. But we have been slowly innovating, whether it is our winery within a winery for our Vineyards series wines, or it's J.Lohr Pure Paso, which we launched in 2019, or our J.Lohr Gesture series, which is a token of appreciation to wine club members and visitors to our tasting rooms. There's a whole lot to our story, a lot to unpack, because we have these 3 appellations, almost 40 wines, 36 of which are certified California sustainable. So I think it's the layers of unfolding in our story, but it's also the trust that we've worked so passionately to build for so many, many years with our consumers. I think during pandemic, for instance, people wanted comfort and they wanted to go to the brands and the places and the people that they feel good about, that they have that connection and that innate trust. And I think that's where J.Lohr comes in.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned the word value, and I think the wines have consistently over-delivered for their price. I can imagine your father, who I know, who is a big man,
Yes.
And I can imagine him saying, you know, I want wine on every dinner table in America, and so I'm going to price it well. But you've continued with that, and as someone who is now in charge of the brand and a co-owner, why do that? Why is that
absolutely.
important?
We have the good fortune by strategic calculation to be vertically integrated. And so what that means for us is that level of quality control at every step of wine grape growing, wine making, etc., which allows us to keep our prices down. And again, my father growing up in South Dakota, I can't remember the last time he stepped into a department store. He is very, very modest and very focused on business. So with that in mind, why wouldn't you do whatever it takes to offer the best value to the consumers that helped build your brand over so many, many years? So we have, of course, however, in our direct-to-consumer wines, we have consistently looked at, what price ceiling can some of these wines take. So we've accelerated that in certain of our wines, but J.Lohr Estates and J.Lohr Vineyards series tier pretty much remain true to their price category. But then when we launched J.Lohr's signature Cabernet Sauvignon on my father's 80th birthday, he's now 88, it was as a result of a direct challenge from our board to craft a luxury caliber wine that would be the epitome of Jerry's 35 plus culminating years in Paso Robles. At $100, who knew? So
Okay, well, I will have that less frequently than your other wines. Tell me about Touching Lives, because this is a sort of homage to your mother,
yes,
right?
yes, absolutely. So my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer in, oh my goodness, about, let me think now, gosh, just right after my younger daughter was born. And after she hit her 5-year mark, we thought she was in the clear, only until she started to have a recurrence of symptoms. We lost her very, very quickly after those recurrence of symptoms that did not point in the direction. So in my grief and wanting to pay it forward with education and the importance of raising awareness, I reached out to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, a family-run organization just like J.Lohr, based out of Texas, in 2009, and said, what can we do together to both commemorate my mother's influence on our business and on our family, of course, but also raise awareness for the importance of early detection. We have this absolutely stunning, beautiful wine coming out of Carol's Vineyard here in St. Helena, called the J.Lohr Carol's Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon. So we commemorated the 2005 as our initial flagship wine for J.Lohr Touching Lives. Fast forward now into our 16th year this year, $3 from every bottle sold goes to provide mammograms, early detection services, patient navigation services, hope kits, which are comforting assemblages of items, all toward helping women feel that they are part of an educational connection that will take away the stigma of breast cancer, give them and their families resources. And again, it's just a deeply heartfelt story that I find touches so many people in the wine industry. When I travel for winemaker dinners and talk with folks for the J.Lohr Touching Lives initiative, I hear from consumers, wait staff, and they say, thank you so much for doing this, because my daughter, my aunt, my mother is going through treatment right now, and this is so helpful. So that's why we do what we do.
It's wonderful, an absolutely wonderful initiative.
Thank you so much, thank you.
Now, I've heard you say that all of the J.Lohr wines embrace the 3 E's.
Yes.
What are the 3 E's?
Oh, that's so great. Okay, so
Other than eating, is eating one of them?
eating and excellence and
Yes.
extraordinary. The 3 E's of sustainability for actually codified by the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance, of which we were among the first 17 to participate in the pilot certification program in 2010. The 3 E's refer to economic feasibility, environmental stewardship, and social equity. And so it's truly important for us to uphold all 3 of the E's in what we call the 3-legged stool of sustainability. So obviously environmental stewardship, that's very, very easy to measure and easy to enact. Economic feasibility, I've got a great example. In 2009, when we implemented our 3-acre photovoltaic solar tracking array, we knew after our internal calculations that by year 5, we would make good on that investment. And we have been able to reduce our power usage in our Paso Robles facility between about 85 and 95% every year. So that's, the economic feasibility example. And then social equity, for me, that's all about caring for your communities, caring for your people, in your colleagues, and whether that's through unearthing scholarships that will advance educational opportunities for our colleagues to deepen their careers, scholarships through partnerships such as Women of the Vine and Spirits, of which we have been a longstanding partner, J.Lohr Touching Lives, all these different ways to add value and better the lives of the very people who are working behind the scenes daily to ensure that our wines are of the caliber that they are, and that they get to the people that they are meant to influence.
Yeah. I think sometimes people don't realize how extraordinarily generous the wine industry is. I mean,
Yes.
you as a company are very generous. But as a whole, I mean, one of the reasons that so many people, I think, love being in the wine industry is because the average person is a giving, warm, friendly, joyful, generous person. I mean, it's really an extraordinary industry. And I think myself, I believe that it stems from the fact that wine is served in bottles. And so it's, I mean, doesn't have to be glass per se, but my point is that it's a communal beverage that is shared. So its very foundation is about the idea that you're giving something to someone else, you're sharing it with them, and that kind of generosity is really deeply in the fabric of the wine industry.
You're so absolutely right. And sometimes I forget that because I get so in the weeds sometimes just as a business co-owner. I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's and all of that. But I look at wine as it's almost a public benefit. We are enhancing and bettering people's lives by creating opportunities to commune and to share ideas and to have meaningful conversations. So you're so right. And I don't think I have ever met a wine maker or owner who is not visionary in what they can do with their wine, how they can better their communities, how they can add value, how they can enhance others' lives. It's really tremendous to me to see just how generous the spirit of, and whether it could be financially or it could be through their art, so many different ways that our community gives back.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible. All right, so we're tasting your Pinot Blanc here, which I have not had before. This is from Arroyo Seco in Monterey, the 2023 really wonderful vintage in so many parts of California. You know, I want to ask you, Cynthia, what do you personally attribute your own success to? What is it? What characteristic do you think you possess?
Well, thank you for that question. And may I? Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Smells lovely.
I have to say, probably a couple of things. I am just driven by the desire to uplift and empower others. And I think that is in part because I grew up a little bit of an underdog. Shy, quiet, skinny kid, diagnosed with scoliosis while I was a teenager. And so I always felt a little bit of the other. And so I wanted to just really find tethers to other people that made me feel good and made them feel good. And then I have to say I've got this work ethic that probably comes from my father. This, all-consuming, you're in or you're not, and I don't do anything halfway. So very passionate work ethic. And when I was in technology, I would stop at nothing to do the best for my clients. And I think coming from a service orientation has me always looking to serve others. And I've been delving into some different consciousness practices recently, and it seems that the happiest individuals are the ones that are seeking their gratitude through service to others. And I am finding that really resonates with me quite a bit. And then one last key to success, we used to have, and you can appreciate this, we would have dinners around the table with my family, my mother and my father and my brothers. And my dad would talk a lot about his business. And so I became a very good and careful listener and knew how to ask the right questions that would allow me to engage deeply with the things that I care most about.
How fabulous. Business education around the dinner table. Yeah, and I'm sorry we can hear fire engines here. Whenever you're in the Napa Valley and you hear a fire engine, it makes you a little worried.
Yeah.
But it's been pouring rain, so hopefully we're all right. And I always love to ask people this. What would what would people be surprised to learn about you?
Oh my goodness. Probably two things in particular. One, that my greatest guilty pleasure, and I say guilty because I really have to give myself permission to do so, is writing.
Wow, okay.
So that is probably what I love the most to do besides raising a family. And then I have sung and performed in 23 different languages. So that's a unique tidbit, I think, about me as well.
You have sung and performed
Yes.
in 23 different languages?
Yes.
Does this mean you speak 23 different languages?
Oh my gosh, only passing for the needs that the song would serve.
Right.
So yeah, it's very unique, I know, but when I moved to Berkeley from Davis, some 40 plus years ago, there was an Eastern European women's folklife ensemble, and my best girlfriend in college had introduced me to the music. I fell madly in love with it. I have a good ear, so I found that they were auditioning. I auditioned, got in, and that began that whole, chapter of my creative vocal artistry, shall we say.
You Renaissance woman, you. Well, thank you for that. That is really something I am surprised to learn. So if you've enjoyed our interview with Cynthia Lohr, you can read the rest of the interview in the People to Know column. Thanks for watching.